This exercise is going to help you to edit full duct lines all at once. It is a continuation from the exercise on editing a single fitting. First, you must make sure you've got your PractiCAD exercise template opened. And then let's change our options together to make sure we all have the same options selected for this tutorial. We're going to go into library icon in the PractiCAD ribbon or Express toolbar. And we're going to go into the ductwork options. You must have ductwork clicked right here to see these options. Make sure that check in out attachment is checked, always recommended. Allow incompatible connectors unchecked. That is also always recommended. We have duct line placement parameters, both trace and set by selection. Everything here is usually checked. Size read only is up to the user. And for duct line editing, to start this exercise, let's keep change duct to transition checked. Keep duct size at turn checked. Keep duct size at transition unchecked. And specification by geometry checked. And if you do make any changes, a save key should appear, and just exit out. First thing we need to do is get a full duct line on the drawing. So I'm going to zone into this area here. Let's go up to our workbox and select the zone. I'm going to choose the zone supply for new fittings. And then I'm going to choose a specification. Here I'm going to choose 6-inch water gauge and apply it to new fittings. Remember that your specs and zones might be different on your screen than that of this exercise. Once you've selected a zone and a specification, let's go up to our fitting bin and grab a piece of rectangular duct. I'm going to click once. And then we're going to come over to our fitting parameter box. And I'm going to size it to be 42 by 24. And I'm going to put the elevation bottom at 15 foot. Now we're going to zoom and pan into the drawing between these girls about midway. And just click once to place it on the drawing. It's now asking us for the rotation. Going to click again to accept rotation. Now the routing parameters are in the bottom, new piece exact. We're going to hit piece spacebar for piece. That is not necessary if you're already routing on piece. However, if you're starting to see it routing on exact, switch it to piece. And once you've done that, I'm going to click once to place it. Next, you're going to hit C spacebar for continue. We're going to add 2 pieces of duct on the drawing by clicking twice. So we got 3. Then go into your fitting parameter box and click on the finish length transition or a transition you'd like to use. Then we're going to click once to place that. Next, grab a radius elbow or a square elbow, whichever one you want. Probably best for this exercise, we'll grab a radius elbow. And then I'm going to pan the drawing a little to the left, and I'm going to switch the routing method here by hitting U spacebar, and I'm going to route a little duct line about this many fittings. And then remember to hit escape to let go of the last fitting. So take your time and draw out this duct line. Once you've got your duct line set, let's change the entire elevation of the whole duct line. But before we do that, go into your tag bin and grab your elevation 0 no leader tag. And I'm going to click on it and then click on the first fitting in the line and place that tag down on your drawing. Notice that if you have a snap point highlighted, it's actually going to snap to that spot. I'm going to click here And we're going to put another one. And you can see how the nearest node is snapped. So the tag wants to snap there. If I want to place it here and have it ignore that node, I'm going to hit F3. And that's going to shut the snaps off. You can also come down here and click O snap. But I'm going to do that just for one command. You don't have to. And I'm going to place that tag down on the drawing. And then I'm going to hit F3 to turn snaps back on. So notice we should have snaps on and polar on for the rest of this. But we've got two tags on your drawing. So now I'm going to hit escape and let go of the tag I was holding. And let's click on the first piece of duct and go to the elevation box and change that elevation to 10-foot bottom and hit enter. And when you do that, you should see that that duct is at bottom 10, and it should have changed and edited the entire duct line all the way to the end. If you attached everything correctly. If you want to pause, you can always highlight the duct line and go into your automatic bin and choose the duct line check automatic and click on it. Make sure, as I've done here, that you've only got red marks at the ends, so there's no break. In order to do this exercise, you make sure that there's no break in the duct line. Once you've double checked to make sure there's no break, go back into automatics and click duct line check again. But before you do that, make sure you're not holding anything. Notice if I click on these fittings and then I click on duct line check again, it doesn't make the red marks disappear. However, if you hit escape and you let go of everything on the drawing and then go back into automatics and click on duct line check, it'll remove the marks. So we know we've got a duct line that's all connected here, and we've edited the duct line. Make sure you pause and edit the elevation, check the duct line, and then we'll continue with the remainder of this tutorial. The next portion, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the second fitting. And then right click and go to AutoCAD Properties or double click on the fitting, whichever you prefer. Make sure the AutoCAD Property box is open. And let's change the width in to 36 and hit enter. Notice that because of the settings we have, change duct to transition, that this transition has been added to compensate for the change here. Also notice that the duct line forward has edited. Notice we've got the arrow right here. The arrow's pointing in the direction we're going to be editing. And that's because we're holding the duct, if we go to the fitting tab, by the in joint. So if we want to edit in reverse, hit escape and then do an undo command. I like to use Control Z. So I'm going to hit Control Z once, twice, and I'm going to get it back to exactly where we were. You might want to try U spacebar for undo, but Control Z back. That was just to show you what the change duct to transition would look like. Now let's practice editing the duct line forwards and backwards. What we're going to do for this is put your drawing in isometric view. To do that, we can go to View in your ribbon panel, and we're going to choose right here in AutoCAD Southwest Isometric. And once you've got it there, let's zoom in on that section of the drawing. Now you should be looking in the fitting parameter box and seeing that we're holding by the in joint. And when you are, lock your fitting parameter box open by clicking this little down arrow, as I've done. And then pan your drawing over a little bit so that you can see the duct. I want to focus on the transition. Click on the transition. Now, make sure you're in 3D or 2D wireframe visual style, as I am currently. See, we're in wireframe. If you're not in a 3D or 2D, you're not going to see the arrows and the nodes when you're working in a realistic view. So it's important to make sure you're in 2D or 3D wireframe. And you should see an arrow pointing in the direction that we're going to edit. It should be pointing forward. Double click on that transition and change the top change to 12 or something high and hit enter. And notice that it edits the duct line forward when you do that. And then hit top change and make it negative 12. So you can see we're editing the duct line forward. Now click on top change and set it back to 0. Now to edit in the reverse direction, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see these fittings, go up to the fitting parameter box and switch it from the in to the out. And when you do that, make sure that you see that the arrow, the little blue arrow, has changed direction. It's no longer on the out joint. It's now on the in joint, and it's pointing in the opposite direction because that's the direction we're going to edit in. So now take the top change and change it to 12 again. And then change it to negative 12. And notice that we're editing the ductwork backwards. So we can edit forward or edit backwards. Once you've done that, top change back at 0. Go back to the fitting parameter box and make sure we reset everything to hold by the in because we want to edit for the rest of this exercise duct line forward. Once you've done that, you can click the up arrow to close your fitting box. And now we're going to put this back into top view. So I'm going to switch it back to top view. I'm going to do that under the View tab in the AutoCAD ribbon and hit top. Now zoom back in on your drawing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click on this first piece of duct and we're going to edit the properties by taking the width in and changing it to 36 and hitting enter. And when you do that, you should see that it should edit right up to the transition. That's because we have the button that says change size at transition unchecked. So what that means is we're not keeping the size. The keep size at transition option will change through the transition. But currently we're having it just change up to the transition. Now what we're going to do is click on the transition again. Make sure only the transition is highlighted. Change the width out to 24 and hit enter. When you do that, you should see that Practicad is edited through the duct line because we have the button keep size at turn checked. So the change we made should have edited all the way through the duct line. If we uncheck that button, the change would just go from the transition all the way up to the elbow. But here you can see how that option works. So to get a feel how it would edit with those options turned off, let's hit escape. Let's go back into our Practicad ribbon. Click on the library icon in your Practicad ribbon. And let's change the ductwork options. Going to click on ductwork on the left. And let's check keeps duct size at transition. And let's uncheck keep duct size at turn. And let's uncheck change duct to transition. Then hit the save key and exit out. Now click on the fitting, the second fitting in the duct line, double click and open up your property box. And what we're going to do now is we've checked keep duct size at transition, which means that the change should edit through the duct line, through the transition. We've also unchecked change duct to transition. That's the option that changes the fitting before the change to a transition. So if we do these settings and we go to within and change it to 42 and hit enter, you should see it edit the entire duct line. Notice it's only editing up to the elbow though. The option that says keep duct size at turn, we've unchecked it. So it's editing backwards and forwards through the transition up to the nearest elbow. So you need to get used to playing with these options so that when you edit, the duct does what you want it to do. And the last changes we're going to make is we're going to let go of the existing fitting. And let's zoom into transition and click on the transition and take the width out and change the width out to 24 and hit enter. And once again, that change is only going to go forward down the duct line up into the elbow. Now what we're going to do is hit escape to let go of the transition and click on the fitting directly after it. And let's change that length to 24 and hit enter. And when you do this, notice that the label only is going to switch. The fabrication level is going to go from label only to cut and label when you hit enter. Now there's other tutorials on editing the text. So if your text gets crowded, there'll be other exercises on how to change it. But for right now, highlight your duct line. And then click on this button that says Replace Tags All Duct in your automatic bin. Replace Tags All Duct. And when you click on that, it will clean up the text to fit. Now what we're going to do is move this little piece of duct down the length of the duct line up to the elbow. So once you've edited your text, click on the duct and notice you've got a double arrow right here at the short piece. You need to left click once and then you can drag your mouse in the direction you want. I'm going to go all the way to the end, right to here. Notice it's even going around turns, but just go to the end right before the elbow and click. And that'll move the little piece of duct all the way to that elbow. That's the exercise on moving short joints. One thing we're going to do now is we're going to use a routing method to route so that we've got one fitting in between. So I'm going to highlight the last two pieces of duct on the line and delete them. And then we're going to grab a radius elbow. Now notice that we don't see the elbow on the drawing right now. Whenever you don't see an elbow, it either means that A, ortho is on, and currently you can see ortho is not on, or B, that we are on continue and that the duct is snapped to the last fitting we worked with. And if we zoom out, you can see that the elbow is right there. So whenever you don't see a fitting, you need to make sure that ortho is off and then make sure you're not on continue, because otherwise every time you pick a fitting, it should be on your crosshairs. So here we're going to hit N spacebar for new. And then we're going to click once for this line. We're going to switch it to M spacebar for smart. We're going to switch it to the smart routing method. You can see M spacebar on my command line. And we're just going to drag our cursor right here. And when we do that, it should route using the method smart. You can also use I spacebar here for single. It's going to do the same thing. So we're going to switch it to M smart or I for single. And we're just going to attach it right here. And when you do that, you should have one fitting here. And we do. We have a drop cheek elbow on my exercise with a 24-inch straight. It might be different on your screen. But that's the way to move short joints and then edit the duct so you've got one piece. That'll conclude the exercises on duct line editing.